Hi everyone, and welcome back to the kitchen. Today we're making a classic comfort food, cornbread, baked in a cast iron skillet. It's rich, golden, just a little sweet, with those perfect crisp edges that make cornbread so irresistible. And this recipe is really quick, uses simple ingredients, and it's perfect alongside chili, stews, barbecue, or just with a pat of butter or a drizzle of honey. The measures and quantities are all listed in the video description, so let's jump in. Start by preheating your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 Celsius. In a large bowl, measure out the cornmeal, the flour, the baking powder, the baking soda, and salt. And this gives you the base for the cornbread. The cornmeal adds flavor and texture, the flour gives you the structure, and the leavening agents help to keep it light. And then we're going to whisk all this together to combine everything really well. Now in a medium bowl, add in your brown sugar. Now I was all out of brown sugar today, so I'm swapping it out with just some regular white sugar, which is fine. And I generally try not to let being out of a particular ingredient stop me from making something I want to make. Obviously there are limits, but you can usually replace ingredients with alternatives without greatly affecting the end result. So in this case, white sugar for brown sugar doesn't really make a huge difference. Now I'll also add in the honey. I'm using a creamed honey here, so I'm also going to blast this in the microwave for just a few seconds to help soften it up. And while that honey is melting, I'll add in the egg, and then the softened honey. And then I'm going to use this butter measuring tool here to make sure that I'm getting just the right amount of butter, a half a cup. And then I'm also going to soften or melt the butter. This combo gives the cornbread richness, sweetness, and a little bit of moisture. Now the recipe calls for buttermilk, and when we have it in the house, this is a great way to use up some extra buttermilk. But again, I'm all out of buttermilk today, so I'm going to show you a quick little hack that turns regular milk into chemically the same thing as buttermilk, which is a fermented high acid milk. So we're just going to add a splash of white vinegar to regular milk. We're going to give it a stir and leave it for a few seconds. And then this is going to add that tangy flavor of buttermilk as well as the acid that we need to react with the baking soda, which is going to help to leaven the bread. So I'm going to add that buttermilk to the rest of the wet ingredients and then whisk all that together. Now while the oven is heating up, I'm just going to preheat my cast iron skillet on the stovetop. If you don't have cast iron, you could use a 9-inch square baking pan, but cast iron really shines here. It holds the heat really well, and it gives you that crisp golden crust. So pour the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients, and then gently fold everything in together. You want to be sure not to overmix this too much, and it's fine if there are just a few streaks of flour in there. Overmixing can make your cornbread kind of tough. So now I'm going to grease the pan. You could definitely use butter or vegetable oil here, but for convenience, I'm just going to use this canola cooking spray. Now pour the batter into your prepared skillet, smooth it out a little bit, but you definitely don't have to get it perfect. It'll settle in here a little bit when you put it in the oven. So I'm going to bake this for about 20 minutes until the top is golden brown and the center is nice and set. A toothpick, or in this case these cake testers, inserted into the middle should come out clean, which this one does. And at this point the edges should be beautifully crisp thanks to that cast iron. So just let it cool here for a few minutes before slicing and serving. The cornbread is fantastic with just butter, honey, or jam, but it's also a perfect side dish for chilies, soups, barbecues, generally any spicy foods, and the sweetness really balances the smoky, spicy dishes really well. Now here's a little bit of kitchen science. Cornmeal doesn't actually contain any gluten, which is why cornbread has that crumbly, tender texture, but we add a little bit of flour to help give it some structure so that it can actually stay together and not fall apart completely. Now the cast iron pan in this case is creating what's basically a Maillard reaction. All that heat is caramelizing the sugars in the mixture. That's what gives it that lovely brown and crispy edge. So this is a super budget-friendly recipe. The main costs here are in the butter, the buttermilk, and the cornmeal. All the other ingredients are basically pantry staples. And as the buttermilk can be swapped out for regular milk with vinegar, you don't even need to have that in-house. The total cost for this cornbread was $4.54, and that makes enough to serve 8 generous pieces. Prep time is about 15 minutes, and then bake time was roughly 20 minutes. So you're really only just over half an hour away from some fresh homemade cornbread. And that's it. Classic cornbread, baked in a cast iron skillet, crispy on the outside, soft and crumbly in the middle, perfect with just about anything. If you give this one a try, please let me know what you served it with. And thanks for watching. As this is a new channel, I'd appreciate it if you could like the video and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time with another recipe.